All right, good morning everyone and welcome to week 3. We have a couple of new people in the room because, as you know, over the next couple of weeks various people will come off their quarantine and will drift into the class again, happy, healthy and wanting to participate. So when you see anybody who you haven't seen before or someone who looks around kind of confused and dazed and doesn't quite know what to do, then welcome them and make sure that you show them the ropes of what we're trying to do here. Good morning, ma'am. And we have Cheryl here from our distance class who made the effort to come in and is also looking for a recruit here to join her group. So if you have not yet found a group, that might be a good person to talk to. Before we go in and talk today about governance and how different parts of a company fit together in governance, report to each other, and get the job done, any questions, anything not quite clear for assessments, groups, how we run the course? We're now in week 3, so things are settling down reasonably well. Any questions for the housekeeping department? Well, that's pretty good stuff, unless you're all very shy, in which case that's bad news. So if you have any questions, you know this course runs on the basis that, like in business, if I was your manager, you send a question, I respond within minutes rather than days or weeks. So if you post something on Facebook or on WeChat, you get an answer pretty much instantly. The idea is that we don't want you to waste time getting on with your job. If you send it on stream, it will take longer. If you send it by email, it'll take really long. So the best way to do it is to either send a message on Facebook or to post something in the group. And if this is something that is of great interest, I'll just post the answer generally and everybody knows what we're doing. Any questions? Anyone in this room right now who is not yet in the Facebook group? You are new, you're not in yet, that's okay. Anyone else who's not yet in the Facebook group? Okay, good. So ask a colleague in the break, or after the break, I guess, when we're done, how to do that so that you don't miss out. All the stuff that we put in Facebook as messages and announcements, we also put in stream, but it takes a while before that ports over. And Facebook is much faster, and you do need to be in that group if you participate in assessment number 1, and you must participate in assessment 1 because it's compulsory. Any other questions before we get going? So the routine that we're now falling into, which seems to work quite well, is that we will do tutorials for the folks that are here in person in Auckland on Thursdays right after the class, and thank you for sticking to splitting up the class. We had 2 manageable, somewhat smaller groups last week, so we'll have 1 tutorial from 12 to 1, 1 from 1 to 2. That means that you have in a smaller group a chance to interact, and the trick is that if you get a case sent many days before, like on Sunday for a tutorial on Thursday, you have enough time to read the case. If you do not read the case, then it doesn't make much sense to come to a tutorial because you're just wasting time. The tutorial is interactive, so if your plan is to sit in the tutorial and work on your laptop on other projects, then you will run into trouble because I can see in the reflection of your eyes what you're looking at in the laptop, and if that is not the slides from the course, then I'll be very unhappy. So make sure that when you come to a tutorial, you come there to participate. We know that if we just talk to you, you learn a little. If you have to talk back and participate, you learn a lot more. And when you then do it in assessments, you learn the most. So the tutorial is not there to be another lecture where I just keep on going and going, but it is for you to be able to participate so you can walk out knowing you can do this, you can contribute, and you have something important to say. For the folks that are distance, offshore, on Manawatu, we are doing tutorials. That's fell into a great routine now, seems to work. Wednesday evenings, either starting at 5:30 or at 6, 2 tutorials, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, depending on what the time is, 5:30 or 6. And we have a group that seems to be mainly the distance group and some folks from here who prefer Saturday morning, and that will probably settle on a time slot of 9 to 10 and 10 to 11. So essentially we have 6 tutorial slots conveniently spread over evening hours, weekend hours, so that anybody who works, anybody who's got other schedules can join. Make sure that at least up to assessment number 1, you join the tutorials, because what we're doing in assessment 1 will be very, very similar. 3 very short cases, and then in groups of about 20 people or so, interaction, messages, comments, short comments back and forth. So what we do in tutorials, talking about a case, is exactly what we will be doing in assessment 1. So that's the prep for that. When we're done in week number 7 with the assessment number 1, we will continue tutorials. Usually we have a dropped off attendance because some people say, well, assessment number 1's done, so may as well do something else. It is a good way to continue learning, and for some of you it's quite interesting and good to be active, but if you do make an effort to at least come up to assessment number 1 to the tutorials, then that is helpful for you. When we talk about governance, if you have to explain governance, then most people would say it has something to do with control, making sure that we control people in a company to do the right thing. It has something to do with rules, who reports to whom and who is supposed to do what. When we have rules, we normally give authority to people. We allow people in a company to do something. A person who drives the truck is allowed to drive the truck. A person who answers the phone is allowed to speak for the company on the phone. And a CEO is allowed to do pretty much anything because she's the highest up in a firm. So we have some assignment of authority and responsibility. Make sure you understand the difference. Responsibility is when I tell you what you have to achieve. I give you a plan. A salesperson gets a sales plan that says you have to sell $1 million worth of chocolate bunnies for Easter this year. That's your responsibility. That's a duty. And then I give you the authority. That means I give you the tools and the right to do the things you need to do to sell the $1 million worth of chocolate bunnies for Easter. That means that you get to decide which customers you talk to. You get a car, you get samples, you get a price list, you get support from the office. I give you the authority to now make things happen so that you can fit your responsibility in. In most firms, we give responsibility. Good morning. We fit responsibility quite easily into an organizational chart. We tell people what they have to do. We have job descriptions, and that usually tells people what they should do. And in equally as many firms, we don't give sufficient authority. So quite often we tell people what they have to accomplish, but we don't give them all the tools they need to get the job done. And you can see that in governance, assigning responsibilities and authority is important to match, because if we tell somebody to do something, but then we don't give them all the tools they need to get the job done, they will not be able to succeed. So governance is about assigning responsibilities, accountabilities. What is accountability?
Accountable. The person is accountable.
A person is accountable, and what does that mean?
Means they're reliable.
They're reliable. Not necessarily. Many accountable people will be terribly unreliable, irresponsible, real idiots, morons.
Taking responsibility.
Okay, what does accountability mean?
I think goes beyond responsibility. So
You are responsible for something. Accountable means that I hold you accountable for a task. I tell you, this is what we're going to get done. Get on with it. You now have the freedom to do, short on killing people and selling the company, to do what needs to be done. But then you come back to me at some point because I hold you accountable and you tell me what you have achieved. Here's the plan. Here's what I did. I did better than the plan, gold star. I did less than the plan, off with your head. Very simple stuff. So being accountable is a standard function in business. Unless you own the company, own all the shares, and are the chairman, CEO, chief bottle washer, and king all in one run, you will have people who you are accountable to. You have currently probably family members, your parents, who you are accountable to. They will want to know how you're spending their money. And they will want to know whether you're making progress. whether you're running with a B average, an A average, or a oops average. They will want to know that you're on track to finish on time because they want you to have a job and earn money and pay money back and contribute and all those things. So in companies, we have a governance system that partly is about rules. It is partly also about being a company that does the right thing. And when you talk about doing things right and wrong, then for some people that's clearly black and white. This is right, this is wrong, easy to figure out. But there are for some people gray areas. A salesperson who needs to make the numbers at the end of the month and is a little short of sales and is starting to overtalk, hype up the product, talking about things that aren't quite right, hoping that that will clinch the deal. Do we allow salespeople to be over boastful, to be over promising, or do we tell people in our company, you never lie? Do people lie? Do you lie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's pretty honest. You have a car?
Yeah.
You drive?
Yes.
What's the speed limit on the highway in New Zealand?
100.
Good. Have you ever run 101 and more?
Yes.
Okay, she's a criminal. So we have a liar and a criminal, and probably most of you are in the same category. Most of us define what is right and wrong in our personal way. You might very well decide that 103 kilometers an hour is kind of like 100 because probably the speedometer isn't quite accurate and they probably put it over on the fast side, so it's probably only 100 when you go 103, so I can go 105 because that's only 2 over the real 100, and suddenly we're doing 200 and you're still thinking it's the right thing. You can see where this thinking goes. And we have other people, like I drive for 3 hours in the morning to get here from Tauranga, and I had 6 or 7 people on the highway before today. When it says 70, they go 60. Yeah. You hate those people, don't you? And you're telling them 60 doesn't mean 60, it means 68. And they say, oh, 60 is 40. And when it rains, then it's down to 30. And when they see another car on the road, it's down to going in reverse. So what we have is we have a system in companies that trains people to do things as we in this company have defined is the right way. Every company has special air coming out of the air conditioning vent. It defines how we do things around here. And it's usually that the owners, the founders, the CEO, the managers tell everybody how we do things around here. We are a company that is very responsive to customers. We are a company that is very proud for the exact specifications of our cars. We are a company that is very focused on being a great employer, making sure that our people walk in the morning with a special spring in their step and a smile on their lips, and they will be the best employees you deal with. Every company has a way of doing things, and it's different for every company because it is dependent on how you make people do their job. People aren't machines. People can tweak what they do. They can define for themselves, is 102 better than 100, or should I go 190 or 60? People have attitudes, people have beliefs, and that flows into how they do work. So governance is the special glue that glues together everyone in a company and then produces an outcome that makes the company seen in a certain way. Our reputation, our brand, whether we are reliable, whether we can be trusted, whether we are faster than anyone else, whether we take ownership of problems and fix them, whether we have people that are incredibly well educated, or whether we have people that constantly need to ask a specialist back in the home office for answers, all of those things flow into how we are seen and what we do. Governance is a way of how an organization becomes an organization from the different parts that we have in companies. And I know that many of you are not undergraduate business students. So we will do a quick run through today of how a company actually works, what parts it has, and how these parts connect so that we have a functioning business that gets you up to speed to where you need to be. The important part to remember is that governance is the same whether you have a company with 2 employees or 3 or 4, or whether you have a company like Frontera with 7,000. Governance as a concept is obviously more complicated to handle every day in a big firm, but it is exactly the same in a big firm as in a small firm. And it is not a privilege, it's not something that you select to do, but every company must have governance, and every company does have governance. In companies where you don't talk about it, where you don't understand it, you have bad governance, governance by accident, where you just happen to do things and you hope they come out right. In companies where you often reflect on what you do and you often talk to people about whether you are in fact doing the right thing, you might very well have better governance. And in companies that understand that governance is the special way that makes us as a company, you usually have quite good governance. So the size of the firm does not matter. In fact, you will know in a couple of minutes that in New Zealand, how many people, sir, do you need in New Zealand to form a new business?